Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here. We have less than a month left in the NBA season. In fact, I believe we only really have 2 full weeks of the season to go. And things are actually starting to sort themselves out. I thought we might have been in for a bit more of a logjam. But things are definitely starting to sort themselves out. Teams are really starting to, well, seed themselves, if you must put it that way. And are really trying to jostle for position. Not so much anymore. They are definitely in position and really starting to work things out. That'll be a bit of a precursor. I was going to do some Nostradamus kind of thinking about how teams are going to sit. They have just started to sort themselves out. No real logger jams on that one. Week 22 review coming at you for the 23-24 NBA season, March 23rd through to March 29th. A little bit happening around the league with some teams. For others, not so much. Whether that is for this current week or certainly heading in for the rest of their season. Without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with Atlanta, and they were undefeated on the week, 4-0, 34-39 on the season, starting to make a bit more of a jump. Of course, they beat Boston twice. Just a bogey team for the Celtics this week. Dejounte Murray, not only the player of the week for Boston, but certainly my best player in the Eastern Conference for the 22nd week of the season. 30.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 10.3 assists, 2.8 steals and 0.8 blocks a game, less than 3 turnovers, 49% from the field, 42.2 from deep, 57.1 from the free throw line. Ultimately, the big move here for Dejounte Murray is really positioning himself overall as potentially the best player Atlanta has had all season for me, and also really just cutting that rope there with Brooklyn and making sure they are definitely going to be in the play-in tournament. I do not see anything changing from the perspective of the Hawks being at number 10, but really, really good to see Dejounte Murray answering a lot of critics and just showing the value that he has there. I wouldn't be surprised whether Atlanta really settle on him moving forward, particularly with the talk of Trae Young on and gone by the start of next year. Speaking of Boston, they did have those 2 losses to Atlanta, did get the 1 win on the week, still 57-16 on the season, and Jason Tatum just another firestorm of a week. Just a small lack of efficiency, ultimately the difference in this one here. Tatum, 31.3 points, 7.7 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks, just around 3 turnovers a game. 44.1 from the field, 28.6 from deep, and 84.8 from the free throw line. Boston in cruise control now, well and truly 10 games above the rest of their competition there in the East. They will be the number 1 seed. And for me, they are the team that everyone in the league in the regular season is hunting. While I don't know whether they are necessarily the championship favourites, they certainly have a right to be the number 1 favourite coming out of the East. And that is withstanding the efforts of Milwaukee. Massive year for them. Brooklyn 3-1 on the week, one of their better weeks. Unfortunately, little too late there after a really rough week the week before. Honestly, cut their chances of a play-in tournament for me. Did get a nice win against Chicago, one of their other play-in tournament contenders, but I don't think Brooklyn are going to be able to do too much else. Mikal Bridges, 18.8 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.8 steals and 0.5 blocks a game. Less than 3 turnovers, 45% from the field, 41.4 from deep, 100% from the free throw line. Too little too late for Brooklyn right now, who are going to be yet another different looking team come next season. Another team that's just not doing well at all, the Charlotte Hornets. Announcing LaMelo Ball is done for the season, 1-3 on the week. 18-55 on the season, had that nice win there against Cleveland. Brandon Miller has been a nice standout there, and I think you're probably going to find he's going to be the 3rd placed getter in the Rookie of the Year race. 20 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2 assists, 0.5 blocks a game, I should say, on less than 2 turnovers. 45.3 from the field, 40% from deep, 80% from the free throw line. Charlotte going into preservation mode right now. There is no point trying to bust everyone the last month of the season. Get them off early, get them into rehab early if they can. For Chicago, though, they are being threatened in that 9th seed over in the East. 1-3 on the week doesn't help that. 35-39 on the season compared to 34-39. Just when we thought they were going to be able to break 500, they have a really rough week and sneak Atlanta back within a chance there. Nice win against Indiana, but again, you lose out to Washington, one of the worst teams to ever step on an NBA floor, and you also lose out to Brooklyn. Although the most consistent factor for Chicago over the last 3 years continues to be their most consistent factor, DeMar DeRozan, 28.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists a game, 1.8 steals, 0.8 blocks. Just at that 2 turnover mark, over 50% from the field, I can give that a pass, as well as the 80% plus from the free throw line. But DeMar DeRozan, just a guy who still managed to live off that mid-range and close game, 18.2% from deep, not ideal. Chicago, they're not going to drop out of the play-in tournament. It's now a matter of whether they're going to be the 9th seed or the 10th seed in this set here. Can they win a couple of games and manage to somehow sneak a first-round matchup? I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see Chicago and Atlanta both not make that playoff scenario there. But yeah, probably just blowing their chances at a 500 style of season there have the Bulls. Cleveland trying to rejuvenate a little bit there. Donovan Mitchell back into the side, and they are ultimately just going to try and build some momentum and get some reps in heading into the postseason. 45-29 on the year, 2-2 on the week. Did defeat Philadelphia, but did not only lose to Charlotte, but also lost to Miami, in that tug-of-war battle that's going on in the middle part of the conference. Jared Allen, their best player over this period, 15.8 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 0.5 steals, less than 2 turnovers, 69.2 from the field, 75% from the free throw line. Ultimately here for Cleveland, it's now getting reps in, it's now avoiding injury, it's trying to strengthen yourself and just seeing whether you can solidify yourself in that top 3 there, whether you can hold off New York. That's going to be key. Ultimately for Cleveland, they need a first round playoff win. They need to solidify themselves after a subpar finish last season. Detroit continuing to be one of the worst teams in the league, and it does say a lot when the best player to have played 4 games for you on the week is Malachi Flynn, although they did manage to get their own win against Washington. But beating your own kids at sport is the kind of operation Detroit are running there. Malachi Flynn, as I mentioned, 12 points, 3.8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks. Efficient splits there from deep and the field, a little to be desired from the free throw line. Indiana, they have secured a plus 500 season this year, 2-2 on the week, 42-33, 9 games clear of that magical mark. Did get a win against the Clippers, but did lose out to Chicago, which is not something you want as a lower seed in the East, particularly if you could match up with them in a play-in tournament. Pascal Siakam, 25.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 0.3 steals, and 0.3 blocks. Efficiency from the field as well, less than 2 turnovers, over 52% from the field, 40% from deep. Would like a little bit more from the former All-Star, 73.5 from the free throw line. He is going to be massive in any playoff chance in a series that Indiana have. It makes for a really unique matchup, dealing with both Siakam as a threat offensively and with Halliburton as a threat offensively, particularly because Siakam's going to be able to do a lot off the ball if you are going to have Halliburton just being that facilitator that the team needs. You factor in Miles Turner, you factor Aaron Nesmith in, you factor in Ben Mathurin. You've got a little bit going on there for Indiana. Could be a tough matchup. If they manage to get things firing over a series, they could cause an upset. Miami, 2-1 on the week, 40-33 on the season, so a couple of games off having met the pace of the Pacers, let alone the record of the Pacers, and they look like they're going to get above 500. Terry Rozier really starting to find some form with this team. Miami just trying to take advantage of some of the different officiating that's going on now in the back half of the season. Nice win against Cleveland. Did lose out to Golden State. Not ideal competing against an opposite number who have been very much around the same ballpark as a team this year in the opposite conference, and particularly when you're talking about them as a team that could very well be in the playoffs. Bam Adebayo, as I mentioned at the start of this year, I've harped on it throughout the year. He is the number 1 man in Miami right now. He took over that team as early as the NBA Finals. It's just a matter of now everyone falling into place, getting the job done. 20 points, 12.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists on the week to go with 2.7 steals and 0.7 blocks. Less than 3 turnovers, in fact barely at 2 turnovers, right on the dot at 2 turnovers a game. 59.1 from the field, 42.9 from deep. So Bam proving to be more of a stretch scorer, an efficient scorer there. However, 55.6 from the free throw line needs a little bit of work. The Heat, they're going to be a side that really can challenge. They're going to cause a lot of issues here. If you're a team facing them in the play-in tournament, you are going to want to be careful. If you're a team facing them in the first round, you're going to want to be careful. Miami, a team that can cause an upset there, but they are once again tracking for another 500 year. Terry Rozier with a really nice week as well, some solid contributions, really just putting out different lineups and things that are certainly creating a different dynamic and once again shaking it all up there for the Heat, making them a genuine playoff worry. Milwaukee, they are the second seed, 1-2 in the week, 46-27 on the season. They did get a nice win there against Oklahoma City, but probably need to be concerned at the fact that they didn't get the job done against a Laker team that was, well, undermanned and still got the job done, and certainly against New Orleans, who are continuing to fight through. Giannis, though, he just continues to have a massive run, doesn't he? 31.3 points, 18 rebounds, 6.3 assists across those 3 games. And because the shine has gone off him, he can continue to fly under the radar. I mean, we're talking about an MVP, a finals MVP, a defensive player of the year level player, a top 25 player of all time. I don't think we can really get off the fact that Giannis is now just becoming so consistent and his numbers so consistent. His defense is consistent as well. People are just underselling what he can do as a player. 0.7 steals, 1.3 blocks a game. Turnovers aren't ideal at 4 a game, but 64.6 from the field is just ridiculous. You factor in the point that he can't make a 3, and his free throws are pedestrian, Ben Wallace at best at times. But how do you deal with 31, 18 and 6, locking you down on the other end of the floor? Milwaukee have just found a little bit of chemistry. They're starting to get things to roll. It is going to be a matter of whether they can continue to hold out, whether they can do anything substantial in the playoffs. They are that second seed. You would have to say that they are the other conference final favourite. How do they match up against Boston? How do they match up in other areas? I mean, we're talking about a Philadelphia team that very well could have Joel Embiid back in time of the postseason. That creates a completely different dynamic as well. But Milwaukee, they look like they're going to have another 50-win season. They're certainly going to have another 500 season. And they are going to try and make a run in the postseason. New York 3-1 on the week, 44-29 on the season, and they did have a loss there to the Spurs, but any win is a good win right now for New York. They have punched their ticket as a 500 team, and Jalen Brunson just continues to show why he has been an All-NBA player this year and why he has been amongst those top 10 players in the MVP race. 33 points, 3.5 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 0.5 steals, and 0.5 turnovers a game. 48.2 from the field, 43.3 from deep, and 100% from the free throw line. He's having the best season for a New York Knicks player since Carmelo Anthony in 12-13, and many, and I mean many, will debate that this has been the most important season for a New York Knicks since Patrick Ewing back in 1993-94. It's a lot of burden to bear, it's a lot to weigh up, and it's a lot to put in perspective, but there's no doubt that the season that Jalen Brunson having right now is historical for New York. He's putting in a lot of effort. He's getting some results there. It's just a matter of how far can the Knicks go. Many picking them to be a second-round team. Really, probably fair enough. I mean, they went down 7 games, or 6 or 7 games last year in the conference semi-finals, and you would think that a second round would be passable for them as well. Can they cause an upset? I don't know, but I think you're looking at a second-round team, and I think you're looking at a very confident second-round team with a couple of pinch hitters who are really getting their stuff done as well. Orlando, they're 500 officially for the season. They've continued to be 500 since the 25-game mark last season. They are pushing through very, very nicely. 42-31 on the year, 0-3, however, for the week. And they did lose out to the Clippers and to the Kings, 2 teams in the opposite conference that would very much be close to their situation if they were sharing the same lay of the land. So again, this is a real perspective sort of matchup as far as where they sit for the postseason. Paolo Banchero, a subpar week, and I think that's the only thing that's really going to hold Orlando back. The fortunes, of a Banchero and a Wagner really determine how this team is playing right now. And unfortunately, 5 turnovers a game, less than 40% from the field, less than 20% from deep, and less than 80% from the free throw line for Banchero are always going to cause issues. 20 points, 7.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 0.7 steals, and 0.7 blocks a game. Philadelphia, they're a team that are going to just get over 500, but we're talking about a team that's going to be, around that what are we looking at there, 39, 43 win mark. They're going to be 500. They're going to probably be close to that play-in tournament. Yes, things change when Embiid comes back in because he's going to be more scoring, more competitive. Yes, he's rested, but he's coming off a pretty reasonable injury there. Who knows what Philadelphia look like doing. Again, nice win against the Clippers, but they just couldn't afford to keep dropping games. I mean, you consider if they go 4-0, all of a sudden you're looking at a 42-win team. That is a completely different argument. They're 10 games above 500. People are just waiting for Embiid to come through, but it obviously didn't happen. Maxey, 23.8 points, 3.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists, 1 steal, 0.8 blocks a game, less than 2 turnovers, better than 40% from deep, but sub 45% shooting from the field, and sub 80% from the free throw line. Not ideal for the 76ers. For the Raptors, 0-3 on the week, and I really hope that no one on their team was betting the unders. 23-50 record, did lose to Washington. Gary Trent Jr., their best player, 22.3 points, 2.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 turnovers a game. But does that alleviate the less than 45% from the field? In fact, less than 43% from the field. 25% from deep. Young Porter has got himself in trouble allegedly betting on the game. I don't know exactly what kind of an impact it has. We are seeing a few more athletes and hangers-on being caught by being engaging in this sports betting there, particularly since it's opened up in the United States. Be a really interesting move by the NBA to see how they adjust to this, what kind of movements they put in. It was bound to happen sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of now what the contingency plan is for the league. But Toronto, again, another team looking for the end of the road on this one. And finally, Washington, 2-2 on the week, but they do only have 14 wins on the season. Nice of them to get victories over Toronto and Chicago, and Jordan Poole, their best player, 21.5 points, 4.3 rebounds, 7.8 assists a game, 0.8 steals, 0.3 blocks on a little under 4 turnovers a game. But again, it's just those shooting splits, 43.8 from the field. I'm wanting a minimum 45% from my guards. 30% from deep, I'm wanting 37-38% from my guards at this point. Jordan Poole trying to do a little bit, hasn't quite been Kyle Kuzma, hasn't been able to have the impact, struggled to play himself in the games. That pretty much summarised the Jordan Poole experience right now over in Washington. As we go to look at the top 10 teams over in the East, as you can see, right out on top, no questions whatsoever. The Boston Celtics, they are dominating things along with the Bucks. Now, you do wonder how true of a second seed the Bucks are. In comparison to that first seed of Boston. Your other question might be, how many weak wins have they had to get to that point? I mean, I think the competitive bunch that I've spoken about all year is going to be Cleveland, New York Magic, the Pacers, the Heat, and the Sixers. That 3-8 spot is just going to be crucial. You're going to see a couple of games split them. Could be a really exciting early round of the playoffs. Then you got the Bulls and the Hawks, and no one's really going to be getting in their way from being the two teams that everyone needs to beat in the East. They are just flying, and it's pretty hard to see anyone getting on top of any of those teams there. So Brooklyn, you might be trying hard, but I just don't think you're going to be able to try hard enough there. Beyond that, it's a matter of who's going to the draft. But yeah, the Eastern Conference right now, through 22 weeks of the season, starting to shape up a little bit, but there are certainly some narratives still to play themselves out, and trying to work out who's going to be the leader of Act 3. Over to the Western Conference, starting with Dallas, and they are still on a roll as well. 44-29 on the season, 3-0 week. Key wins as well, defeating Sacramento twice, as both sides look to avoid the play-in tournament and try and clinch a spot in the top 6. Kyrie Irving, for me, their best player, and I know there was that triple-double average of Luka Doncic, but I do have to really factor in efficiency in this stuff. When you're 55.4 from the field, 47.8 from deep, less than 2 turnovers on 27 points a game, it does speak volumes there. 3 rebounds, 5 assists a game, going at 80% from the free throw line as well. Dallas really just getting things done right now, really trying to tune things up and try and make something really special heading into the postseason. Of course, you've got to look at what kind of matchup they're going to have. Anyone from Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Clippers, depending on how they all finish, is really who they're going to be taking on there in that first round. So it's not going to be easy, but they do need form going in. They do need consistency. And with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic the way they're playing right now, they are certainly going to get that consistency, a team to really match up with. Denver, a team that continues to flirt with the number 1 seed in the West, and at this point will only have the away series advantage essentially when they take on the Eastern Conference at the moment. 2-2 on the week, 51-23 on the season. Major loss there as well in the ranks, and that's mainly because Phoenix is such an impact player there, and Minnesota very much could be a genuine competition there, particularly as you head to the Western Conference Finals. That's something that you do just need to be aware about if you are the Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr., their best player across all 4 games, really trying to step up, really getting active as the season comes to end. 13.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1 steal a game. 38.1 from deep, 83.3 from the stripe, 46.7 from the field. Denver just hitting their straps, and some of their role players really trying to get things done and really trying to get involved as the season goes along, and just try and get them in tune for the last few weeks here, try and steal that number 1 seed, and eventually try and have that home court advantage throughout the Western playoffs. Golden State 3-1, they're 39-34, and they are really needing to put on a performance because the team below them is running hot, running fast, and running very quickly there. But a 3-1 week is a good way to quell them there, 39-34. Key wins against Miami and Orlando, but that loss there to Minnesota just doesn't bode well, knowing that that's going to be a potential first-round matchup. But Andrew Wiggins has finally been back in this team for a couple of weeks now, really started to settle. He's been an impact player. 18.8 points, 6.3 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 steal, and 1.3 blocks on 2 turnovers. 48.1 from the field, 40% from deep, 78.9 from the free throw line. It's this Andrew Wiggins that was one of the 3 key players in their last championship series. When you look at it now, it'd be Jonathan Kuminga who's probably going to step into that second spot consistently. Wiggins around that third spot there with the Klay Thompson. So it's going to take an absolute miracle run if they're going to have any sort of an impact against a really top team. You can't override experience, there's no doubt about that, but they are coming from a very back marker there, fighting to still stay in the play-in tournament. And the reason I say that is the team I'm about to talk about here, the Houston Rockets, 4-0. They have just started to click. Some switches hit. Thought they were going to be probably another 10 games below 500. They've been on a mammoth streak there, 38-35 on the season. Didn't think a play-in tournament was possible. And right now, if the Golden State Warriors aren't healthy, they certainly are going to try and take advantage there. All of their wins key, there's no doubt about it, particularly at this point. They are fighting to keep their season extended. Jalen Green, massive week for the Rockets, player of the week for them, and certainly for me, player of the week in the Western Conference. 34.8 points, 7.3 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals and 0.5 blocks on 3.8 turnovers, and just epically efficient from the field, 51% there, 48.9 from deep, also key. Houston are just running hot, and it's crazy to think that they nearly traded Jalen Green before the deadline, because this would not have happened. And right now, you're really looking at the fact that you're going to have Şengün and Green in tandem. You're going to have veterans in Brooks, and even to an extent a Van Vliet trying to support this team. Becomes a different unit. I think if you get another really solid veteran into this team, they can really start to push towards that top 8 and even that top 6. Obviously, the West is a massive jumble right now. You've still got Golden State and the Lakers, and you're also looking at teams like Utah who are going to make a run. A team like Memphis that has been underwhelmingly unhealthy all season. So, the Western Conference is certainly going to be one of the most competitive houses the league has seen for quite some time heading into next season, but the Rockets really looking good there, and you can really give their season a tick no matter what happens from here. Speaking of seasons that get a tick, that is going to be the Clippers. 2-2 week, both of their wins key. Their losses major, though, in the real scheme of things, particularly now when you start to look that they're probably going to be that 4th seed, but they are genuinely fighting to maintain that 4th seed. 46-27 on the season. Kawhi Leonard, he's been all-NBA level this season. He's been in that MVP conversation this season, and he had a really efficient week once again. 23 points, 7.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.8 steals, and 1.5 blocks, so less than 3 turnovers, 50% from the field, over 90% from the stripe. I'm not liking the under 30% from deep, but sometimes you've got to give and take. Kawhi's just been having one of those seasons. He's continuing to step up. He's continuing to step out. Paul George is now having big games again. And you've got James Harden and Russell Westbrook continuing to chip in and try and get some things done as well. There's no reason why we can't expect the Clippers to really put on a show, why we can't expect them to be in the top 4. And I think when you look at their veteran experience, when you look at the way they can play, when you look at the ability that a Kawhi Leonard has in the postseason, they could be dangerous. It'll be interesting to see where they end up. A team that has become interesting right now because they're on the verge of being 10 games above 500, and they're going to cause some real headaches if they are going to be one of the playing teams there. The Lakers, 3-1 on the week, 41-33. Key wins against Milwaukee and Indiana, but that major loss there to Indiana certainly does turn things there. But they're a 500 team, and they're going to be above 500 considerably there. All things evaluated and valued there. Austin Reeves, 20.8 points, 8.5 rebounds, 8.8 assists. He's had a massive week there for the Lakers, and that's part of the key as well. Yeah, you got LeBron and AD, but you also need to have guys like Reeves, Hashimura, etc. step up. D'Angelo Russell, that's what they've been doing. 0.3 steals, 0.8 blocks, less than 3 turnovers a game. Even though he hasn't been efficient, it's the production that he's providing in other areas that's allowing other guys to flourish. Ultimately, he's a role guy that's really stepping up. He's really stepping out. 91.7 from the free throw line, so when he does get to the line, which is probably more than anybody else for a role player in the league, he's converting, and that is the main thing there for the Lakers. They're still in that 9 and 10th there, but I tell you what, with the way they're playing, I wouldn't want to be facing them if you're the loser of the 7th versus 8th seed, particularly if they beat the Golden State Warriors. Could be a very, very interesting matchup, and you could see the Lakers sneak into the 8th seed. Memphis, 0-2 on the week, 24-49. They've now set the all-time record for most players used in a season. Desmond Bain back into the rotation, 20.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 9.5 assists, and crazy enough has still been their best player all season. 45.2 from the field, 40% from deep, 100% from the free throw line. I think I've still got him down for 9 or 10 of their wins so far this season. They've only won 24 games. That's the kind of season that he was having. Brandon Clark's finally back into the lineup, as you can see there. It's crazy to think that Memphis are a team that's missed by a long way and are genuinely a top 6 team when they're healthy. That's a really scary prospect there. Minnesota 3-0 on the week. They're 51-22 on the season. They are really, really pushing for that number 1 seed, and they'll have a lot of confidence having beaten Denver and knowing that they can get the job done. Rudy Gobert, for me, has just been the key asset for them over this week. 16.3 points, 12.7 rebounds, 2 blocks a game, but it's the epic efficiency from the field, 82.6%. Converting 8 out of 10 from the field. He's not turning it over. He's playing good defense. He's probably the defensive player of the year. Really chipping through. Hasn't really got the credit that he deserves in Minnesota this year. Obviously, Anthony Edwards having that breakout All-NBA first-team level season. Or stepping up from last year, I should say. Karl Anthony Towns having a nice role within the team. Naz Reid having a really good 6-man season as well. It's just really hard to sort of quantify what he's doing, but you're going to be talking about a guy who's going to probably be all-defensive first team, playing against an All-NBA first-team level guard, alongside, I should say, and a 6-man. That's a really nice, deep team. And Minnesota, they're going to be their best performing season since 03-04, over 20 years, and since Kevin Garnett did his thing there. New Orleans 2-1 on the week, 45-28 on the season. A nice win there against Milwaukee. Did lose out to Oklahoma City, and ultimately it is just coming down to seeding wins and losses here. That's why these are becoming crucial losses there. Zion Williamson still trying to prove his case there, still trying to make a point of All-NBA selection. I don't know whether he's going to get there, but he's had a really nice season, and I think we're just starting to really see what Zion can be as a player once he starts taking things seriously. It's as simple as that. 31 points, 5.7 rebounds, 6 assists on the week, 1.7 steals, 0.3 blocks, 4 turnovers, not ideal, but he is their primary point guard at the moment. And if he's shooting 69.6% from the field, he's really giving New Orleans a chance. And you're talking about the fact that you're going to have him and CJ McCollum both with 10 wins on the board. Brandon Ingram's probably got another 1 or 2 great games for the season in comparison there as well. So a nice little bit of depth at the top of that team, really getting things done. They're a chance to crack into the top 4. Don't be shocked if you see them with a first round playoff advantage. No doubt about that. Oklahoma City, one of the other teams that is still fighting for the number 1 seed. And some really standout performances going through there as well. 2-2 on the week, 51-22 in the year. Key wins against New Orleans there as well. Unfortunately, they did lose out to Milwaukee, and at the moment, losing out to Houston, not ideal when they are on a tear. But Josh Giddey having a really nice week, having arguably the best week of his career and really standing out and stepping up after being written off after earlier allegations in the season. And good to see from an Australian perspective that he's really starting to prime himself up heading towards the Olympics. 24.5 points, 8 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 0.3 steals, 0.5 blocks on 2 turnovers. Efficient splits there, and the guy that's really getting lost here is the fact that, it was looking like the number 2 option in OKC until earlier this season. Now all of a sudden, you've got Chet Holmgren and everyone that's really chipping in on that team, along with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who for me still leading the MVP race. But if Josh Giddey's going to be your third option, he's going to produce like this. You've got a really deep team, and he's priming himself just going into the playoffs, and that's what makes Oklahoma City dangerous too. That if on an off night you're going to have Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey, it makes things really, really interesting. That's for sure. Phoenix, they're still fighting between 5, 6, 7, and 8, depending on what day of the week it is. 2-2 is how they went on this particular week, 43-31 on the season. Did defeat Denver, but again, you lose out to Oklahoma City, who you're really trying to compete with playoff-wise. You lose out to the Spurs, who have been arguably the worst team there in the Western Conference this year, but Kevin Durant still being that all-NBA level, that MVP level conversation player that he has been all season. 27.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.5 blocks. He's been chipping in where he needs to on that end of the floor, and certainly the most productive defender, arguably, out of that starting lineup. 65.7 from the field, 63.2 from deep, 75% from the free throw line. Phoenix just starting to put different pieces together and just showing that, hey, any one of our perennial all-stars can really contribute. You've also got someone like a Nurkic that's really playing well, a Grayson Allen who can really shoot the rock. Phoenix are just that outlier team, because if their offense clicks on any given night, particularly in the playoffs, they could cause an upset, they could end the series. That's just the kind of team they are. They're also a team that could be really so far off that their series is over, their playoffs are over in the first round, and there isn't an eyelid battered, or they could just have a really poor playing tournament if that's where they get stuck and they miss the playoffs. It's just really scary to think when you've got Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the same team. Portland 0-4 on the week, 19-55 in the season. Delano Banton, their best player. They did lose to Miami by 60 points, might I add, which is disgusting. 21.3 points, 7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.5 blocks, 3.3 turnovers there, 41.5 from the field, 27.3 from deep, 88.9. The free throw line. Sacramento 2-2 on the week, 42-31. Another team much like Phoenix on their night are just going to tear you apart offensively. The problem is, if they're having a bad night defensively, they are a liability, and that's when they do succumb to different teams there. All wins and all losses right now are crucial, because it could end up determining whether they are, going to be playing in the play-in tournament as a 7th or an 8th seed, and depending on how the Lakers play, whether they're going to be a 9th seed, which is really scary to think, and does start to really change the MVP equation there for me as well. De'Aaron Fox, a really, really nice week in comparison. But again, it's the inefficiencies that do prove costly at 41.3 from the field. But 23.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 3.8 assists, 2.3 steals, less than 2 turnovers, 34.5 from deep, and 90.5 from the free throw line. Yeah, you're looking at a team that very, very much so could be looking at a play-in tournament there. And if things aren't going their way and there's some selfishness, could miss out on the playoffs totally. They're sort of in that position Dallas were last year, where, yeah, we're talking about Sabonis' numbers, and we're talking about how great of a season he's had, but it may not amount to anything if he's not getting to the postseason. It's the same thing with Dallas last year. Luka with a really big year. It didn't amount to anything. He didn't get to the postseason. We'll see what Sacramento can do. I do wonder whether De'Aaron Fox is potentially going to try and blow this thing up before he leaves. It's not the smartest move. You just don't know what's going on behind closed doors, though. For the Spurs, 3-1 on the week. Their best week all season. 18-56 on the season. All of their wins key here as a young, growing team. Devin Vassell did play in all their games, though. He does get the credit. 20.5 points, 3.3 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.3 steals, less than 2 turnovers. Just shy of 46% from the field, 31% from deep, and a tick over 83% from the free throw line. Spurs, one of the worst teams in the league. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the off-season to try and build around Wembanyama. Does Vassell stay? Does Zach Collins stay? Does Sohan stay? It's going to be interesting to see exactly how the Spurs look at the end of all of this. And finally for Utah, 0-4 in the week. They went from being a 500 team, potential play-in team, to not going to sniff it and not going to go close, and really being that cut below, and just wondering what they're going to be doing in the off-season. I wouldn't be surprised whether this is the moment they try and seize assets and get anything for some of their role players there, potentially to someone like a Spurs, or someone like a Toronto. We'll see what happens there. John Collins, their best player, his best week that he's had since he's left Atlanta. 23.5 points, 8.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.3 steals, 0.5 blocks a game, less than 2 turnovers. Nice efficiency, 63.3 from the field, 62.5 from deep, 88% from the free throw line. Of course, we had our top 10 in the East. We do have to look at the top 10 in the West just as things continue to unfold. Your first four, your Timberwolves, your Thunder, your first three really, your Timberwolves, your Thunder and the Nuggets, they're going to be the three that are fighting out for the top spot. From here, it's going to be the Clippers and the Pelicans that sort of fight it out for the fourth and fifth. Dallas may end up getting out of this as a healthy sixth seed, but between Dallas and Dallas and the Suns and the Kings, they tend to want to split things wherever they can. But I'm certainly more worried about the Mavericks, the Suns and the Kings in comparison to the Lakers, because you're looking at a Lakers team that very well could still finish 44-45 wins. If the Mavericks, the Suns and the Kings are not on a good run, yeah, the Lakers may very well jump to sixth. That makes it really interesting. The Lakers could very well still manage to fall to 10th. Could there be an interesting matchup there with Houston? So there's a lot of issues going on there. I would say the Kings are the concern there. Ultimately, I don't think their offense is enough to overcome poor defense, unlike the Suns. The Mavericks are just on a roll, and I trust Kyrie in a bigger situation more than I do someone like De'Aaron Fox. And you can't outlie the crucial contributions defensively all over that Anthony Davis has had, and the fact, LeBron's still contributing, and the role players, the Lakers, are getting involved. So ultimately, top 10 in the West, I think, is cut into segments of 3, 2, 3 and 2 with the outline there, but a lot of interchangeable parts. Still a lot of basketball to go, but it's been a really fun and interesting season so far, and the final 2 weeks are going to be pretty close to that as well. Anyway, guys, that has been my review for the 22nd week of the 23-24 NBA season. There is still a lot to play, a lot to unfold. It'll be interesting to see how it all goes. That's been me, guys. I'm out.